And how did you manage that in terms of one is the discipline piece? How did you ensure that you had a routine, no matter what your mood was, that you would follow that routine? What was your routine when you were around there, even in the Arctic or in Alaska? How would you go about those 12 week? I mean, how
Well,
many
well,
hours
the
a day that you were
advantage that
on?
I had is in being a freelance writer, and I'll never forget this this advice I read in a library book when I decided young that I was interested in being a writer, and it said, I write when I'm inspired, and I make sure that I'm inspired at 9 o'clock every morning. And I always kind of followed that. I understood what that meant was you don't have guaranteed income, so it's
Mhm.
up to you to be disciplined and organize your day. Nobody else is going to give you that structure. You have to do it yourself. So I think that helped immensely. And I have one of my favorite memories of living up there is just waking up in the morning and it being very dark, and I would turn on I had a gas stove, and I would turn on the gas stove to boil some water for tea, and just the first light in my cabin would be that the gas flame under the
Right.
kettle, and then I kind of start get going, and then there'd be the whistle of the kettle, and I just it was really nice and cozy, and then I'd make the fire and just make everything as comfortable as possible, right? And once everything's nice and cozy and comfortable, then you could get going. And it's the same wherever you are in the Arctic. And the main thing, I was actually talking to some people about this recently with the Arctic and your daily schedule. Everything takes a bit longer. Like even if you're just going, say, from one house to like a couple of streets over, you have to
Mhm.
put on a bunch of layers. And, so there'll be several different layers, and then you put on the warm coat, and then maybe there's the windproof layer. And then you've got a couple of doors to go out of because Arctic houses
Wow.
always have, like an entryway and then another doorway. So to keep the cold out. And what would be a simple stroll in Mumbai is just like takes a
Right.
half hour, and you just get used to that. You just adapt for that. Everything's going to take longer. If you're driving, it may be snowy and icy on the road, so you go slowly, which from what I understand is not something the Mumbai drivers do.
Yes.
And it just everything takes time. And I think once you accept that, you can get into that whole like Arctic rhythm.
And has that Arctic rhythm made you a little more patient as compared to the regular person walking on the street in Vermont or in Mumbai?
That's a really good question. And I think so. I don't know that that's necessarily true, and other people would agree with me, but sometimes I think so. Sometimes I like to think I learn not to sweat the small little details, and sometimes, like everybody else, I get worked up. But I think that's a really good question. I like to think so. I don't know if my partner would agree with me, but I like to think so.